to the Getting a CCR sequence into your main sequence tutorial. You can see here I have the Lightorama sequence editor open, and I have a file named carolofthebells_sup.lms that I opened, and this is a sequence that was exported from the SuperStar sequencer. This file plays just fine to my star and my CCRs, but I want to get this into a main sequence that controls all my other lights, and in this tutorial I'm going to show how you do that. First, I'm going to click on the File menu and click on Open, and I have my existing sequences sorted by name. I'm going to go scroll down until I find my file that I'm using as my main sequence. It's called carolofthebells.lms. I click on OK, and here this is really sort of a dummy file that it doesn't really have a sequence in it, but we'll pretend that this is a main sequence that controls all my other lights. It just has 32 channels in it. There are two ways to get the CCR sequence into your main sequence. The first way is with a subsequence, and to do a subsequence you click on one of the channels. I'm going to click on the top one here and say insert channel above, and then in this new channel I do a left click, and I'm going to change his name to CCR subsequence. And then for device type I'm going to choose sequence, and you notice when I selected sequence this bottom field enabled, and I click on this little square down in the lower right, and I scroll down until I find my subsequence, my exported sequence, which is called carolofthebells_sup.lms. I click on Open, and now that file name appears in here. I click on OK, and that file is rather large, so it takes a while to process, but when it does get finished it'll come back, and this top channel will be a subsequence channel now. Now the way subsequences work is they only play while the channel is on, and we want to play for the whole duration of the sequence, so I want to do a right click and say select row, do another right click and say on. That turns this channel on for the entire length of the sequence, and so now this subsequence will be played alongside the main sequence. Now one thing to be aware of is that on some computers this gets played a little bit out of sync. On my sequence I have to turn off this first little bit to get it to start a little later, and then on mine if I start at about 0.3 seconds later then it plays in sync, and I've had other customers report other values, such as the biggest one I got reported was he had to turn it on 0.9 seconds later. So be aware that you may have that problem. So to avoid that problem you may want to use the other way to get a sequence into your main sequence, and so I'm going to do a right click and say delete channel, get rid of that guy, and now I'm going to show how you use copy paste to get this sequence into here. Note that I have both sequences loaded here. To get back to my exported sequence I can click on this tab, and the other way to switch back and forth between these two programs is to click on the window menu, and down at the bottom it'll have all your open sequences listed, and you can switch back and forth between them that way also. So I have the exported sequence displayed here, and I'm going to select, I'm going to click on this little select button up here and make sure that you have the sequence scrolled all the way to the left. Start at the upper left cell here and then go for the whole length of the sequence, and we just want the upper 6 channels, and say copy, and that copied all those channels into the clipboard. Now we want to go back to the main sequence, Now before we do the paste, it is very important to go hover the mouse over the tools guy here, make the tools panel fly out, and make sure you have paste by time selected. The default will be paste by cell, and you have to change that to be paste by time. That is very important. And once you have that set, the sequence editor will save that setting. So we have paste by time selected. We let that panel pop back in. We select, we make sure we're scrolled all the way to the left. We select the upper left cell and click on paste. And that pastes in all of those star channels from the CCR sequence. Now of course that erased anything that was in those first 6 channels, and we're just assuming that that's what you wanted, because because we're assuming that these first 6 channels of your controller are what control your star. So that gets the star channels in there. Now you need to get the CCR channels in there. Well, first you need to add some CCRs. I'm going to go down to the bottom and do a right click on this guy and say insert device below. This dialog box that pops up, it defaults to cosmic color device, and that's what we want. My first CCR is unit ID 03. That is because my two 16 channel controllers have unit ID 01 and 02, and so my first CCR controller is unit ID 03, and he is on the regular network, so we keep that set there. And all of these values here, we leave them at the defaults. That's what you want to keep, the defaults. We click on OK, and you can see a CCR got added down here. He's compressed here. This little plus button will expand him so that you see all 50 pixels if you want, but I'm going to click on the minus so that he's compressed again. And then I need to add some more CCRs, and I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back. I'm back. You can see I've added 6 CCRs here. I'm going to add the 7th one and say insert device below, and this one will be unit ID 09, and this time I'm going to use auxiliary A for the network, because I am now adding my last 6 CCRs, and they are on another network, which is auxiliary A network. And so now I'm going to add the remaining CCRs, and I will be back. I'm back. I've added all 12 CCRs, and note that the 7th CCR is unit ID 09, and the next unit ID after that is not 10, it is 0A. So the unit IDs go 09, 0A, 0B, 0C, 0D, and 0E. Now these last 6 CCRs are on the auxiliary A network, and you notice I made a mistake. I did this on purpose. This CCR, I entered him on the regular network instead of the auxiliary A network, and if you do a click on him, you'll notice if you do a left click, it doesn't do anything, and if you do a right click, there's nothing that says, there's nothing in here that will change the unit ID of every pixel in this CCR. The way to do that is you click on the Tools menu and select Channel Configuration. And it's really rather nice here. If you click on the Change Controller button, it will list all of your controllers, and you notice all the ones on the standard network are listed first, and then the ones on the auxiliary A network are listed. So our CCR that has unit ID 0C is right here. I click on him, and the unit ID is correct, but the network is wrong, so I'm going to select auxiliary A here and click on OK, and then it gives me a message box here that says changing controller Ladorama controller unit 0C. Are you sure you want to change all channels for this controller? Yes, that's exactly what we want to do. So we say yes, we click OK, and we click OK again. And the way to check the what has been set in here is we want to expand him and click on one of these pixels, and you can see he now says network is auxiliary A and the unit ID is 0C. So I click on OK there. I compress him again. Now the name did not change when we corrected the network that he's on. So I'm going to click on change name and put the A in there so that I know that I have corrected him. So now we have all the CCRs added here, and we can go back to our Carol of the Bells underscore SUP sequence, which is the exported sequence. We make sure we're scrolled all the way to the left, and then you make sure this select button is pressed. We click on the upper left cell here, and then we drag clear to the end of the sequence. We make sure we have all 12 CCRs. We click on copy. We go back to our main sequence. Again, make sure we're scrolled all the way to the left. Click on the upper left cell. Click on paste. And that puts all the commands from the CCRs in here. You can see that's where those morphs are, and if we expand this guy, this is where our white morphs are that actually show up pink. So that got all of the CCR channel commands into there, and so if we click on the play button here and have our hardware plugged in and configured correctly, it will play the CCR sequence along with all the channel commands of our main sequence.